let's talk about the Married Women Property Act. So Married Women Property Act was never enacted in India. It was actually enacted in England. And because we were an English colony at that time, it got implemented in India in 1874. Now, to understand this act, you should understand what was the situation previous to this act. What was the situation pre-1874? Now, prior to 1874, if a woman married, her property interest transferred to her husband. That means her husband acquired interest in her property which she had acquired pre-marriage or maybe after marriage from her efforts. And the interest was to such an extent that the woman could not part away or alienate this property, sell this property without the consent of the husband. Further, the husband's creditors had a right over this woman's property for the loans taken by the husband, not the woman. And this anomaly in the law was rectified by making the Married Women Property Act in 1874, which basically says that any property of a woman pre-marriage, post-marriage is her separate property, and her husband and even the husband's creditors have no claim over this property of the woman. So it is basically a woman's separate property act, which is called the Married Women Property Act. So it says there in the paragraph, if you read, under the MWP Act, all the properties that belong to the woman gets insulated and protected from all the other court attachments or any income tax department attachment that the husband has run up. So for any actions of the husband or any commitment of the husband, any obligation of the husband, whatsoever nature it may be, the woman's property are not to be taken away. That is what this act did in 1874. Now, there are two sections in this act which are very important for us in the estate planning arena, and that are section 5 and 6 of this act. Because section 5 of this act allows a woman, and please note each word which I am speaking. Section 5 allows a woman to buy an insurance policy for her benefit or her children's benefit, and the husband and husband's creditor would have no right over this policy which the woman has bought, which is very similar to what I discussed previously, section 5. So a woman's own policy is insulated against the husband's wrongdoings, simply speaking that. Now section 6 goes further, because section 6 of this act allows the husband to buy a life insurance policy with husband being the life assured, with husband paying the premium of the policy, but assigning this policy to the woman by making a trust for the woman, so that trust for the woman under the MWP Act, so that tomorrow the husband's creditors or the husband cannot take away any value which arises on this policy. So I buy a policy in my name, I am paying the premium, but I buy it under the MWP Act, making my wife the owner of this policy through a trust where she is the beneficiary. Now, even though I have paid this money, my creditors cannot take it away from my wife. That's the beauty of this section. And it's a very, very powerful act. Many of you would have known a person named Telgi, 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 who did the stamp paper scam running into thousands of crore rupees. Now this Telgi person had bought 3 life insurance policy from LIC India, each with a sum assured of 150 crore rupees under the MWP Act in favor of his wife. And till date, in spite of this money being fraud money, it's not illegal money, it's not black money, it's a fraud money. The Indian government has not been able to take that money from the wife. So Mr. Telgi has died. Such is the power of this act. And I would advise each one of you, and that's my second things to do today, that buy at least one life insurance policy under the MWP Act. In fact, I would say all your term policies should be under the MWP Act, so that tomorrow, even if you run huge debts, you have legal liabilities, whatever it is, if you die, your family is secured with this money. Such a big sense of security to a person if you tell this act to that person. And let me also tell you some nuances of this policy. This policy can be bought by the husband for his wife and children, for only his children. Any of these 3 combination is possible. If this policy matures, the money would not be paid to the husband, it would be paid to the beneficiaries mentioned in the policy. So if you are giving this a policy under MWP Act, you have actually parted ownership from you forever. A policy can only be put under the MWP Act at the stage of issuance or before issuance, not after that. So the question is, can you put your existing policies under MWP Act Section 6? No. Only fresh policies can be put under the MWP Act. When you buy this policy, there is an addendum which needs to be added. This is addendum like this. Right? So this is the person whom you are giving, the first column, spouse or child. And these are the people whom you will be acting as trustees. And I would strongly advise you, and this usually people would not tell you, do not make your wife a trustee in this policy. Because tomorrow if your wife runs up some debt, being a trustee, she can be forced to pay this money to the creditor, or but if she is not the trustee, they can not force her. Right? Any questions anybody has on the MWP Act?
So the last point, what you have told,
Yeah.
the trustee one.
Yeah.
Can you repeat?
What I am saying is, in case of a court judgment, and suppose you have bought a policy in your name, 1 crore rupees term plan, where you have made your wife the beneficiary, right? And your wife has certain debts to pay to somebody. After your death, this money goes to the trust where your wife is the beneficiary and the trustee, if you have made her the trustee in this policy. So the courts would force her that being the trustee. Who is the trustee? Trustee is the manager. So she is the owner as well as the manager. So the courts would force her that please bring out this money from this trust and pay it to the creditor. But supposedly, another scenario where she is the beneficiary but not the trustee. Trustee is supposedly her sister, and the debt is run up by your wife. So can the courts force her sister to bring out that money? No, they have no power over the sister, because sister's mandate says I will use this money for the benefit of the wife. When I think I deem fit it to be used for the benefit of my sister. So if you make these policies under MWP Act, if you want a higher level of security, the reason why I am putting a policy under MWP Act, we should try to avoid that beneficiary and trustee are the same people. Is that clear? And generally, life insurance advisors would tell you, you cannot make anybody else the trustee, only the beneficiary can become a trustee. It is utter nonsense. Anybody can be a trustee. So the only qualification required is that person should be major and of sound mind. That's it. Is that clear?
Yes, that is clear. But the trustee don't have any rights. Only the beneficiary have the rights.
Trustees have no right over the money, but the right to operate the money.
Okay.
And there's a difference between operation and ownership. Now they cannot use it for themselves.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do trust most probably tomorrow or in the next class, then it becomes more clear. But you all must buy a life insurance policy under the MWP Act. And if you are promoting life insurance, you are one of the advisors for a life insurance company, you should go to all your existing clients and ask them to buy a policy under the MWP Act. It's such a powerful act, such a powerful benefit which no other instrument in India can give. Such protection is impossible. People would say PPF also gives you a similar protection. PPF, with the current amendment in PPF, the money in PPF account can be taken up for the statutory obligation of a person. That means if you have income tax, sale tax, GST, all those labor obligation, the money in the PPF account can be taken away. Your creditors you cannot take. So it has a lower protection than this MWP Act. Your nominee in a PPF account is also the owner, not the caretaker. There were two products, life insurance policy and a PPF account.
Reach out today and let's do it professionally.